So fairly often how I, find content to talk about is people message me, email me, tweet at me or whatever else. And this one was somewhat interesting because it sort of plays into a lot of things I've talked about on both my channels for a real long time. Crowdfunding games specifically. This is Damone Kim, at least I think that's how you pronounce it. A content creator who I only know of because of his New World videos, but apparently he got quite big doing Genshin Impact videos. Essentially, somebody linked this to me and said, you should probably look at this guy's crowdfunding game because obviously it's got like huge potential of a bunch of people losing money. Essentially, he's making a game, he's selling it to his audience as being the best game ever made by a guy who's never made a game, has no formal training, no informal experiences like a hobbyist or whatever else. And he's basically of the opinion that because certain things happen in his life, this is his calling to do. And I just wanted to talk to people about, the realistic nature of why this is probably not a good idea to fund. And if you're going to fund it, what you should be going into it like with a mindset. So this is the GoFundMe for Play the Other World, I think, or at least I hope this is a working title, because The Other World is just it's like being called John Johnson. It's just like a fucking generic NPC name, basically. There's going to be somebody watching this that's called John Johnson. I'm sorry. I'm not your parents, so it's not my fault, but, sorry to be the bearer of bad news. So he's raised $1,400. GoFundMe, the reason he's doing it on GoFundMe is also a bit of a red flag. I understand why he's doing it for him personally, but basically GoFundMe releases you the money right away, whereas if he was doing it on Kickstarter, they do all or nothing campaigns. And there's some logic he used, because I didn't go into this, half chub or whatever. I watched 3 hours worth of his Q&As to, come to a verdict on this one and come to an opinion. And within one of these Q&As, he says something along the lines of, we went with GoFundMe so that we can have the money immediately. Whereas with Kickstarter, obviously, they don't release it until you reach the full funds, which is essentially why Kickstarter is better than GoFundMe for the security of the person. Because if he just raises $1,400, he's obviously not making a fucking game, is he? With $1,400. So that money's gone from people's pockets. He's got the money. I'm sure he's putting it back into the art or whatever he's doing at this point, because there is no game. But, if this raised 20 grand, it doesn't mean anything's ever getting made. But, we'll watch this video, and then I'll go over some notes that I made from the Q&A and show you some, big issues, I guess. And this isn't to shit on this guy. I'm sure he has every best intention in the world. But part of my job is to tell people and remind them that good intentions are fucking irrelevant in the real world. It doesn't matter how good your intention is if you take a bunch of money from people saying that you're making the best thing ever, when you can't. You might be the exception in one area of life, and that's like the narrative he's using as to why he will be able to do this. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. But let's watch.
Last year, January 15th, I almost died from COVID-19.
Yeah.
Shortly after the fact that I found out that my grandma was dying from stage 4 terminal cancer.
Yeah,
she's still fighting today.
Sucks.
Thank goodness. But through these experiences, it caused me to ask myself a really big question. And that question, my friends, is what is my purpose? What is the legacy that I'm leaving on the planet? This game is much more important to me than just making a cool game or just redefining what it means to play survival action RPGs. It's about creating a legacy that I know that when I die, the product that I left in your hands made your life better because of that. So what does that legacy look like? I have never been more terrified or excited to announce something in my life. I'm here to announce something today that is going to be the biggest project that I've ever set out on, accomplished anything in my life, ever. Okay?
So, obviously, I don't want to be that guy. I really don't, because I've been through basically almost dying. Not even basically. I don't even know why I'm saying basically. I was months away from being dead from, stuff in my body. I don't really want to go into further detail, but yeah, it does make you think about the world differently and stuff like that. But that's not that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to make you successful. It just doesn't. Unfortunately, I wish that was the case, but it just doesn't. It has no bearing on like your chance of success, because at the end of the day, money and experience is what makes games, not, you know, especially if it's going to be something massive, which he's claiming it's going to be. Somebody's calling my phone. Hello? I'm so confused about what that phone call was, but I don't speak Thai, so I have no fucking idea what that guy was trying to tell me, but let's continue.
Okay. The odds are definitely stacked against me. But as we continue to move through this process, build a team, work through all of the challenges, I am 1000% committed to creating the best multiplayer, medieval, action, survival, fantasy RPG that you've ever played.
So I don't think we need to, you know, continue on with the art style discussion, because it's not really relevant to anything I'm about to say about this. So somebody in his chat asks the question, reasonable question, you know, have you made any games before? It's more credible that you should a quick little game. I know you have mentors who are guiding you, but at the end of the day, it's your vision.
Again, like, I would rather fail daring greatly than for us to just, you know, take 5 years to make a little game and then another 10 years after, you know, another 5 years after that. Like, we'll figure it out, dude.
So the problem with saying this is, one, he's saying that to make this game, it's basically the Dreamworld pitch. He actually does unironically say the last game you'll ever play, which I always love when people say that. He says this game's going to take 5 years, which is just a number pulled out of nowhere because he has no money and no team, not a single line of code written or anything. So it's impossible. This goes to show like the lack of experience in project management that is going to plague this, even if he had the money, because putting a time frame on something that the time right now is infinite. It's not 5 years because you don't have any money or a team. So until you do, you can't even begin to talk about time that it will take to do something, because you're currently doing nothing. Like, you don't have any money to do anything. But he says this game is going to take 5 years, and then someone says, oh, why don't you make a little game first? Which is a reasonable thing to say, because that's what I always recommend to people as well. Make a little game, use that credibility and those funds to parlay into a medium-sized game, then move on to a bigger game. It just makes common sense, right? Then everyone knows you're good on your word, you're going to deliver, you have residual income from things you've already made. It's just the best of every world, literally. But the thing that he says, you know, oh, I don't want to spend 5 years making a little game. A little game, 5 years, biggest game ever, 5 years. That's not compatible, is it? Nobody's saying take 5 years to make a little game and then 10 years total to make a bigger game. It just doesn't make sense. But the words he says, I'd rather fail than do this. Well, of course you would. You're crowdfunding. This is my problem with crowdfunding almost always. Of course you'd rather fail doing that, because you're asking other people to foot the bill for your failure. And that's part of the issue with crowdfunding. It's that nobody's happy. Well, I'm not going to generalize, actually. I'm not going to use hyperbole. There are some people that are happy to make little games for small amounts of money on crowdfunding platforms and then just deliver those and just continue to do it, or use that to, you know, gain experience and do other stuff. But some people just aren't happy with doing little things and delivering on those. They want to do the biggest thing ever. And I think that's completely irresponsible and also delusional to an extent, that you want to do that on somebody else's dollar. Like, you're asking people to trust you, and then you're doing something you have no business doing. I'm sorry to say it, because I think this guy is like really passionate about this, and it sucks he's gone through some bad, rough times recently, and I know he was homeless before he started his YouTube channel and stuff like that. But those things don't inform, because that's a big running theme in the stuff that he says. He says, I was homeless and people told me I'd never amount to anything, and then I got big on YouTube and made 50 grand in a month from making, Genshin Impact videos. And he says because he's done that, he can definitely make, the best game ever. And it's just like, just because something has happened that's totally unrelated to other things one time, doesn't mean you can just apply that to life. It sounds good, like you're a fucking superhero or something, but it's just not real. Like that's actually bordering on delusion. And again, when you use words like that, it makes it sound like you're being really mean, and I don't mean to be, but I think that's much closer to reality than, because I went through adversity, I can therefore do anything that I want. That's amazing on like a fucking, a card that you buy from the store or whatever to give to somebody, but it's just not real life.
I may not have a, development experience,
or
coding experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a little coding experience, but like I can find the people that do, right? I can find the programmers that have the abilities. I can find the devs.
Yeah.
I can find the artists. I can find literally anybody, right?
Yeah, you can.
So if there's nothing preventing me from putting a team together,
there's
nothing preventing us from creating the product.
There is. So, again, this is just one of those things that sounds great, but apply that to everything ever. Oh, I can't fail because there's nothing stopping me from hiring people that know what they're doing. So how has any game ever failed when they've had money and people who know how to hire other people? It just doesn't make sense, does it? It's a complete work of fiction. On top of that, there are things stopping you. You've never made a game. You're not a game developer. You're not a game designer. You have no formal training in anything. You've not hobbyist made anything. Then on top of that, as far as I'm aware, you've not managed your own business other than YouTube. And as someone who manages a YouTube business, it's like it's baby shit compared to a real business. Like, all I do is my taxes and pay somebody to edit videos. Like, there's really nothing else to it as a business. It's not complicated. When you're managing a bunch of people's time, what people are working on constantly, meetings with people, being the boss that everyone's coming to with all the problems, even being a leader of men and women and everyone else, that's a skill in and of itself. So to say there's nothing stopping me because I can hire people, one, all those things I've just said are true. Two, you've got no fucking money. So of course this thing's stopping you. So I could obviously go on in this video and go through these notes and these timestamps that I've pulled up and continue to say why this is not realistic. But I think I'd basically just be beating a dead horse on this. I don't think he's going to raise a lot of money. It sucks, again, because I'd love more content creators to make creative endeavors. Seeing creators do something else, start a product, a business, make a video game, whatever else, is really cool. And crowdfunding can be a part of that. But it's really difficult to measure and to balance and to do it properly. And I consider myself somewhat of an expert in crowdfunding at this point. Some people might say that's bullshit and I'm an expert in nothing. And I'd agree with you mostly. But of the people on the internet, I don't know almost anybody, if anybody, that's looked at and analysed crowdfunding projects more than I have. I've been through thousands of them. I've read all the sheets. I've spoken to the developers. I've made the in-depth downfall videos. I've interviewed ex-employees. Like, I've been through all of this. And I can spot a mile off when something's just doomed to fail. And one big red flag is always when the front man is essentially saying, oh, I can definitely do this because X, Y, and Z reason, and X, Y, and Z have nothing to do with the fundamentals of what they're trying to do. Running a business, managing money, managing people, making the actual product. If you have none of those, and what you've got is platitudes as to why your personality type or your experience that's totally unrelated is why you'll succeed, I will almost guarantee with close to 100% accuracy that you are going to fail. and when it's on other people's money, I obviously see a responsibility in the content I've created over the years to let people know that this is a fucking supremely bad idea. All the best to him. I'd suggest making YouTube content and then just using that money to build the game yourself, because he essentially said he's going to not be able to do YouTube anymore because he'll be working on the game too much. But it's like, I don't understand how that would work, because you're not a programmer, you're not an artist, you're not a modeler, you're not any of these things that would make a game. And if you don't have money to pay people that do, what are you going to be managing? Like, what are you going to be doing with your time? And he also said if people donate to him 500 grand, which is what the fundraiser is, $500,000, if people donate him $500,000, he said he can turn that into $2 million, which one of the points in my notes was basically, if you can do that, then just do that with the money you already have for the next 2 or 3 years. You'll have hundreds of millions of dollars, and then just make the game out of your own pocket. Because if you truly, sincerely believe you can just create money out of nothing, then you can already do that. You don't need the public's money. But yeah, there we go. Again, nothing against this dude. I actually think he's a really nice guy, and obviously he's been through some shit in life, so I recognize that struggle. But yeah, that's it. Probably going to be streaming on Twitch after this video goes live, so come hang out. We're going to watch some videos, have a good time, hopefully. My face still hurts like fuck from this dry socket, which some people thought dry socket means it's just dry and you should get some water in it or something. It's not. It's basically when the blood clot doesn't form to protect like the nerves and the bone and stuff. So it's not just like people were like, oh, why don't you just drink some more water? And it's not how it works, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd have been okay. But yeah, it is what it is. See you on Twitch. Come hang out. See you next time. Peace out.